Welcome back. We're going to take a look at exercise 6 today. And with that, it's actually creating a two-dimensional layout drawing. And we're going to look at the detailing aspects of SolidWorks. So there's no part modeling today with respect to this drawing. The lab, there is actually a part to model up. So let's begin. First, go to Vertani1.com. So V as in Victor, E-R, T as in Tom, A as in Apple, N as in Nancy, U, X as in X-ray, and then don't forget the 1.com. Go to Part Files, and you're going to go ahead and select the Exercise 6 part. Now, those of you who might have older versions of SolidWorks, you could scroll down and use the old version. The old version, I think, dates back maybe 3 or 4 years or so. Okay, but they're basically the same part. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and go to the instructional manual to show you our plan, what we're going to cover today. So I'm going to go to the instructional manuals and SolidWorks Basics and get to page 64. 64 starts this exercise, and let me show you what our plan is. This is what we're going to try and, or this is what we will create today. This drawing, a front view, a top view, a right view, an auxiliary view, an isometric view, a section view, a detail view. So the first half of this lesson is devoted to views. The second half will be adding these dimensions, like there you can see an inspection dimension, and we're going to bring in dimensions from the actual part model by retrieving them, and we're going to try some other things out as well. Now the lab is actually building this part, and I'm going to go through it rather quickly after we're finished with this. And again, anytime you do these labs, my recommendation is that you pause my video, try it on your own. And then if you get stuck, watch the video, because I just plug in the dimensions really quick. Some of the dimensions I put in aren't even correct because the intent is really for you to try these on your own. When you get a job in industry, as some of you might know, there's no video to show you how to do your job. So the best thing right now is to learn how to do these independently. But the exercises we do together. So let's begin. All right, so if you have that part file downloaded, by the way, when it downloads, you go back to the part files and exercise 6, you should see it appear. You can just hit download, and in the lower left corner, if you're using Chrome, you just click on it. It should launch inside SolidWorks. If not, go to SolidWorks Open, find your download directory, and find the exercise 6 or E6. Drop it in. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the little arrow up here. Make sure you tack that in. Go to File. Now there's several ways to do this, by the way. This is just one of the methods I'm showing you that I think is very convenient. Go to File and find Make Drawing from Part. Now what this does is it's going to bring up the sheet size and format. And you can see here there's A ANSI landscape, there's portraits, we're looking for just A ANSI landscape. Those of you in my class, everything's on A size. So if I do ever have you print it out, you can print it out on an 8.5 by 11 sheet. Go ahead and hit OK. Oh, by the way, in there you could select the different sheet sizes for your company. You could customize those as well, or you could even select a blank sheet and put in the parameters. Okay, so here we have the drawing, and you can see it's broken up into quadrants. We have A2 down here, B2, 1B, and A1. Over here on the right, one of the advantages of going the route that we took is actually, you'll see there's projected view here. Normally that, I should say, never mind, there's standard 3 view, I should say. Standard 3 view normally, back in the day, that's what we used to drop in front, top, and right. You could still do that. But by going to File, Make Drawing from Part, we get this view palette on the right-hand side. Now the view palette, you could select multiple parts. Like let's say we didn't want the exercise 6 part, we could click on something else. You could refresh it if you're not seeing what you want. But what we're looking for specifically is the front view, and there we see it. Just grab it with your mouse button. Hold your mouse button down while you're hovering over it. Don't let go. Drag now that into the screen to the lower left corner here and get it pretty close down there. Release it, but we're not done yet. Now push your mouse forward and you'll see it will unfold a top view. Go ahead, and once you get that unfolded a little bit there, click. Now move your mouse to the right, and there you have your right side view. Drag that far to the right. We need some space here. And then if you go straight up above that, you'll get an isometric view. Go ahead and click. Now we have the views we want. You could go ahead and hit escape. Now to move these views, you just simply hover over the edges of, there's a little profile around it, a box I should say, and hover over. When you get those little orange edges to appear, click and hold, and now you could drag that. So the isometric view will drag right into the view here, I should say into the sheet quadrant 1B. And these views, if you grab those edges and hold them with your left mouse button, you can drag up and down with that one. This one drags left and right. Notice I can't drag that up or down. By right-clicking, I could unlock the view and move it, but we're following the ANSI standards here. We want that to unfold the way we're seeing it, so just leave it as is. Now, we do need to make a little extra room here because we need to have a top view here as well as an auxiliary view, which would fit. I should say it's section view, not a top view. This is the top view here. An auxiliary view, and we're going to have a couple other things that we're going to drop in. So let's shrink this down. Now we could click on any one of those individual views, and on the left you'll see there's properties for it. For example, you could change them to shaded with edges, or my preference, I would like you, for my students, to use this one right here, which is hidden lines removed. Notice there's also hidden lines visible. If you click on there, you can see the hidden lines, and there's times you're going to want to do that too. But let's just go with hidden lines. And here you could turn off the sheet scale, and you'd be able to specify the scale for that specific view that you have selected. And there's other options here which we're not going to discuss just yet. Now, if you want to change this for the whole sheet and have all of the views update at the same time versus just one individual view, this is what I'd like you to do. Hover your pointer over the tab in the lower left corner here where it says Sheet 1 and right-click. And now you'll see Properties. Go ahead and select Properties. Now with Properties here, you could actually change the sheet name. You could change the scale. See, it's currently at 1/2. Now, what SolidWorks does behind the scenes, actually in the Tools Options menu, you could adjust this. But it actually is set to, there's a little equation built into it where it looks at the sheet size that you supply it with, and then it looks at the part that you supply it with, and it calculates the best fit for standard 3 views, front, top, and right, so they're not too small, they're not too large. And it picks from these standards, like, you know, we have a 1/2 here, but let's take a look. Now let's say, typically we don't want a 1/3 scale. You could go down to a 1/4, but that's going to be a little small. But just so you can see this, let's go ahead and change it to a 1/3 scale. So change it to a 3. All right, now hit Apply Changes. And you'll see now that they're all smaller. Okay. Now let's go back down to the Sheet 1 tab again and right-click and go to Properties, because there's more that I want to show you here. Okay, there's also the type of projection. There's first angle and there's third angle. Third angle is what we use here in the United States. In Europe, certain parts of Europe, England, they might use first angle, which actually flips the direction of something. Let's use my phone here. Let's say this is the front. And within the United States, when you unfold the view above it, it'll actually show you the top. And in some other countries that use third angle, it'll actually show you the bottom. So it's just a variation of what we typically do. All right, so we're going to keep it at third angle though. And we have the ability to also decide maybe that sheet's too small. Maybe we might want to go with a larger size sheet. And so you could select from this list and it will actually update everything. It's quite nice. Go ahead and hit cancel. All right, let's move these down a little bit. And we're going to proceed with the next type of view. We're going to actually create an auxiliary view next. So find up here, auxiliary view. By the way, model view and projected view. Model view, just to show you this really quick, we're not going to use it, but if you click on model view, you could select the part file or a different part. Let's say you want to have multiple parts inside of the same drawing. It happens sometimes. But anyhow, you could select it by browsing, and then you just go to next, and then you could select the view that you want from that, like here's front, top, and right. So it's a little generic, doesn't give you the actual image of the model, except on a preview down below, but that's what that's for. So we're going to cancel that. Projected view is what we witnessed earlier when we dropped in the front view and we were able to unfold the top and a right view. That will allow you to create additional projected views off of any view. But let's go to auxiliary view. Select this little edge here of the actual flange because we want to unfold off of that. And you should see it will dart off to the right here. Get it somewhere in the center and click to release it. Now we have an auxiliary view. Now we're going to go ahead and make a section view. So go ahead and click on section view here. And notice what happens. I'm glad this happened because this is a common mistake I see with my students, and I just repeated it. The last view we had selected, it automatically dropped in the section view for that. And we don't want that. So hit escape on your keyboard a couple times until it disappears. I would recommend pre-selecting the top view because that's what we want to section. And now you could go to the section view icon and you'll see it's inside there. Now this is going to give us a vertical section view. We don't want that, but look at over here, you have cutting lines, you have horizontal, you have auxiliary, and you also have aligned. So we're going to actually go with horizontal. So click on horizontal and get the tip of your pointer to the center of that, what looks like a bullseye. And when you get the orange dot in the center, click, hit the green check, and drag off your view here. Click to release it. Now, SolidWorks is pretty strict in that it sticks with the ANSI standards or whatever standard you select. For example, in the options menu here, you can see this if you go to document properties, I'm set to ANSI. I could go in here and I could change that to the ISO standard or the Ghost standard, whatever you want to set it to, and it will actually update all of the dimensions so that the arrows look per standard for that, okay, as well as any other things that might be on that drawing for annotations. But I'm going to cancel there. Now, I've seen it where people like to see this flipped, where we would actually see that bell housing flipped in reverse. So what you can do with that is over here on the left, while the view is still in a selected state, you could hit flip direction right here, or you could just double click on the arrowhead, or not the arrowheads, but the actual arrow line here. Now, when you do this, you'll get cross-hatching that appears on the view. Notice the view didn't update. That's what it's letting you know. The cross-hatching is just to let you know that it hasn't updated yet. And to get it to update, you want to rebuild. And so right up here we have the rebuild button, or Control B as in boy. Go ahead and hit it, and now you'll see it has flipped. And now click anywhere off of that to display it properly. Be aware that if you don't update your views or hit rebuild before you hit print, let's say you're going to print this out, that cross-hatching will show up in the drawing, indicating that that view has not been updated. So it's a good thing that it does that actually, because you might not realize that you made a change and then all of a sudden you send that drawing out. Whereas here it actually puts that cross-hatching in that view. So just be aware that you might want to hit rebuild if you see that. Okay, so we have our view there. Let's zoom up to that view. I'm taking my pointer and I'm hovering in the center and keeping it in the center as I scroll my wheel toward me. And that way I could zoom to that region. Now, I want to show you how to change these section lines. Get the tip of your pointer, and you have to be very accurate here, get it over the section line and click. And on the left-hand side, you'll see it brings up a library of area hatch fills. Now, turn off the checkbox for material crosshatch. Depending upon the material that you selected, if you did select it, it will actually put in the proper crosshatch according to the ANSI standard. We didn't really select any material in advance, so it just goes with the generic, what they call iron brick stone. But let's go ahead and if you increase this scale, you'll see that the detail gets finer inside there. You could also adjust the angle if you want by hitting the angle. And you could go with solid or none or go back to hatch. Now there's also, you could apply those changes to the specific component. So the whole component will change over any sections that appear. There's that region, just the view, or the specific body. Because SolidWorks enables multi-bodies inside parts, you can actually treat it almost as if it's like an assembly by changing the cross-hatching. Anyhow, go ahead and just let's keep it at component. Notice there's layers. Layers we get into a little later, but not right now. Okay, hit the green check. Now zoom out a little bit, and actually I'm going to pan over here. If I hold my control key and I hold the middle mouse button down, or the wheel, if I push it down like it's a button, and control, I could pan this over to center it. Now I want to make a detail of this area, and that's going to zoom up on that region. So find detail view right here and hover somewhere in the middle there and click and drag out a circle. Click again and you'll see your detail view in a preview state waiting for you to click to position it. So I'm going to click and position it right there. Now the little C that's here, you see you can move that around just so you don't have it over a line. However, over on the left, while that is still selected, that C, you could go over to per standard and you could select from a small library of broken circle, with leader, no leader, or connected. Try connected. You'll see it will connect the two with a straight line. You have with leader, and for the midterm, you will be, I'm going to ask you to change something to with leader, so just try and remember that one for the midterm. It's worth 10 points. All right, and so there is our detail view. Now the detail views are intelligent too. Let's say, see, we're coming up with a scale of 2/3, which is 50, or it's double what we had for 1/3. So maybe we want that to be 1:1. Now you could double click on this text and actually type in over the 2:1 and over the 3:1, and it will update. It's actually intelligent, that note. But there's actually, rather than doing that, if you just click on the view border here, on the left, you could go down here and select from a list of standards. Notice 1/3 isn't on there. That's not a typical standard. That's why I chose it, just to show you you could customize it if you wanted to. Be aware you probably wouldn't want to use 1/3 on a drawing, but just using it as an example here. Go 1:1. Hit the green check. All right, and so we have our detail view. You could also grab the notes and you could drag them in a little closer if need be. Now, let's say we want to look at this view here. Take a look at this view. Now, as you zoom up, and when I used to work in industry, I worked for a firm where we made a lot of prototypes, and so we'd have to create drawings, and I actually worked in the shop for some time, so I'd be working on the lathes and the mills, and sometimes I'd get a drawing and I just couldn't ascertain by looking at the drawing what some of the edges were, because we were using solid models back in that time. And I don't have a very good example here, but see how these edges are all object style, i.e. they're not dashed in any way. There's no representation as to let me know that that's that's a fillet, that's a tangent edge, which really wouldn't be seen on the real model. And so as a courtesy, it was very nice when the engineers started to actually do something like what I'm going to show you here. By right-clicking in that view, you could go to tangent edge and change it to with font. Now you could remove it, but that too doesn't look quite right all the time, especially if you're the guy out in the shop working on this part, because sometimes it's like, oh, what are we looking at there? This makes it a lot more easy for the guys in the shop to ascertain what they're looking at. At least it helped me, and it's a nice courtesy that I pass on to when I design something. So you don't have to do that, but that, and again, only do that if your company acknowledges that that's okay. All right, so you can change those edges. Now to do multiples of those, like I could click Control and select many of these views and do the same thing. Then right click, tangent edge with font, and they'll update. There is also in the tools options the ability to set that to as a default. Now, this view right here, it's acceptable at many companies now to actually have that shaded. The only time they didn't shade things was back in the days when they had like pen plotters, and so it was very difficult and time-consuming to shade. But now with inkjet, you can actually shade this view usually. And again, check with your leadership at your company and make sure this is okay. But you could click on Shade with Edges or just Shaded. And that's a very useful image quite often for, again, the guys working on the bench. I would not recommend shading the other views. Even though it looks really nice, it's not necessarily accepted at all companies, so be careful with that one. Don't shade all the views. Hit the green check. All right, now we're going to go ahead and move on to the second segment of this. Now, you have the ability to change other entities. We're going past views. Now, oh, by the way, there's all these other types of views that you see up here. We're not going to go into those. This is a basic introduction. So if you want to see, you could check out different videos for those ones. All right, now we're going to take a look at another option here. SolidWorks divides this drawing into two, you might say, I don't like to use the word layers because layers refer to something that's in other CAD systems for putting multiple variations on the same sheet. Imagine a sheet of imaginary glass sitting over the drawing template. See, right now, like this A or this 2 or this the border, maybe I want to change the color of the border or add additional information in the title block or break it out a little bit more. Here's how. You could either right-click on any opening on the drawing or go back to the Sheet 1 tab and go to Edit Sheet Format. Now what that does is it takes off that imaginary sheet of glass, as I called it, and enables you to go in here and select this. Like, let's say I want this to be a different color. We don't have the colors up. Let's bring that up. Right mouse button click up here in this gray area away from icons and go to Customize. And what we're looking for is the line format. Check line format and hit OK. It generally appears in the lower left corner. And here you actually do have the ability to set up layers in the traditional CAD sense, but we're not going to cover that just yet. Now what we have when we go in here and we click on entities, we could generally go in and we could change the line color. Let's see here. The border, it doesn't like that, but let's say we want to change this border here, these lines. And this also works on the drawing with the views. But I could select those entities. I could go over here, I could change the thickness. I could also change the color. Let's say maybe I want that to be something that will stand out. Let's go with a green. Hit OK. And now once you click off of that, it should appear. And we could now right click. Oh, by the way, to break these boxes up, you could just go to the sketch tools and let's say we want to break this in half right here. You could draw on additional geometry and completely alter the title block if you like. Now, let's get out of this. The way to get out of it is in the upper right corner here, you have it will edit the sheet, which basically puts that imaginary sheet of glass with our drawing views over this to protect it. Or we could right-click in the center of the screen, go to Edit Sheet there, or right-click on the tab down here and Edit Sheet. And there's our views. So never panic. If your views disappear, just remember that little button in the upper right. That's usually the easiest way out. And we can see the green update and the additional box that we broke out there. Now let's take a look at adding dimensions. Actually, let's add a dimension to this view here. Let's go to Smart Dimension. And let's say we want a dimension from this to this point here, or this edge. And I hit Escape. Try that again. There we go, to that edge. All right, now there's not a lot of magic there. We've been building parts, and that's the same way we dimension inside part files. Not going to spend a lot of time showing you how to do that, but that's an example. You could add dimensions that way. Now, you could also go in here and click on those dimensions. You could adjust the distance gap between the lines. You could flip the arrowheads by clicking on the arrowheads there. Obviously, we don't want that. You could also adjust the leader length and things like that. Let's just leave that alone for right now. Notice it's a light gray. It will by default print out in light gray to let you know it's a reference dimension. Its value can't be changed. So if we just double click on it, we get the ability to go in here and we could put in bilateral tolerances and all those fun things that we saw in earlier videos here. But let's move on here. So this view now, let's extract or retrieve the dimensions that we actually added to the model. Some companies like to do this, some do not. So just be aware, wherever you go to work, check with the management to make sure you're doing it the way they want you to do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Annotations, and there's something called Model Items. And this is basically to retrieve the dimensions that you already dropped in there. Go to Model Items. Now you have the ability to source of the selected feature, the entire model. Be aware you select the entire model. When you click on it, you're going to get a cluster of dimensions that you have to funnel through. May not be the easiest task. So feature by feature might be a little bit easier. And then over here you say bring up the dimensions. There's whole wizard, whole call out. Tolerance dimensions and things like that. All those things could have been added to the 3D model, and then you could call them up here. You have annotations like notes, surface finish symbols, GD&T. Again, all those things could be added to the 3D model and then later in a drawing called up. And then you have reference geometry, and sometimes you just using surfaces that might be imported from someplace. You might want to see them, you could turn it on that way. But let's go ahead and select right in the center of this part. And now you can see the dimensions that it's retrieving. These are the actual dimensions and how they were laid out by the designer of the 3D model. So this is why I've been encouraging you guys over the past several weeks to lay the dimensions out how you might want to see them on a drawing, because they come up that way when you retrieve them. And it can save you a lot of time. And it's just easier to interpret what you're looking at versus a cluster of dimensions that are just floating everywhere. So I'm going to hit the green check mark. And you have the ability to move these dimensions. These dimensions, their value can be changed. So you can actually click on them and change them. Now this 25 radius here, let's bring that up there. Now we can see the arrowhead might be undesirable. You could flip the arrowhead if there's enough space, or it flips automatically. And you could adjust those dimensions there. Now this 0.13, we probably want to see that with 3 decimal places, so we could go ahead and change that to 3, whereas other dimensions, maybe not. But also, this would be like dimensioning the hidden lines. And many of you who make drawings know that that's a big no-no. You'd never want to dimension the hidden lines. So that belongs maybe in a different view. And here's what we can do. Zoom out. Now you can actually move that much of the time to a different view as long as that view is parallel. If the view isn't parallel to how it was drawn out, like for example, if everything was drawn on the front plane, and then all of a sudden on the right view you wanted to bring up these same dimensions, there's a high likelihood that you're not going to be able to see them because they're relative to the view. You're only seeing what's parallel to the view here. Okay, now here's how to move a dimension. And actually, you don't typically want to copy a dimension unless it's to a different sheet. So copy would be holding Control. Remember, we don't want to do that here because this is on the same sheet. You don't want duplicate dimensions. Hold Shift. Get your pointer over the point 125. Depress your mouse button once and hold it. Drag while you're holding the Shift key and holding the mouse button down. Get it to the center of the view that you want to drop it in. Don't try and position it right away until you release it first. So release the mouse button first, and then you could release Shift once you see it there. Now you could go in and you could adjust where you want to see that view. And there we go. Let's try that one more time. The 17-degree dimension here. Let's actually try the Control key just to see you. This is what not to do really for the same drawing, so just be careful. But Control, grab the 17, drag it to the center of that view, release the mouse button first, then release Control. Now you see it kept the 17 down here, which we don't really want, so you could hit Delete on your keyboard. Bring that 17 dimension here, and you could proceed to drag down that line. And now let's say we want to actually have a center line in here. Here's how. Go to, hit Escape a couple times. Then on Annotation, you'll see center line. Click on center line. Select this edge here and this edge here, and it will actually create a center line. And I'm going to hit Escape. I'm going to drag this down. Now let's say we want the CL on there. Let's bring this down a little bit. The CL symbol for centerline. Here's what you could do. You could go down, you could go to the Note tool. And right here you'll see the little add symbol. Click on that, and the first thing you see is CL. But there's other symbols in there too, so just be aware. There's a lot of neat little tools that are buried. Go ahead and take that and just drop that right there. Now it brings up the formatting. So if you want a little bit smaller, let's go with maybe 9 points. And then click anywhere off of it. And then you can relocate it so that it's centered. All right, so let's move on here. So we've seen how to add dimensions and retrieve dimensions. Oh, let's try and add this 4.75 diameter to the top view. Hold Shift, drag that in, and you can actually drag a cluster of dimensions if you wanted to. Now we have the 4.75 over here. Now here's the thing, if you click on that, let's go to the Leaders tab, and you could set it to diameter. And oh, I'm sorry, not there. Right click on it and go to Display Options, and you want Display as Diameter. Now you're going to drag it out again, and it actually gives you the diameter. And it, more typical how you'd want to see it versus a linear dimension. Okay, let's say we also wanted to delete or hide a dimension. You could actually click on dimensions that maybe you don't want them here. Like maybe you don't want this. You could hit Delete on your keyboard. Now by clicking on Delete, that doesn't actually delete it from the model. It just deletes it from the view. And you could retrieve it again if you'd like. And here's another option. You actually do have the ability to go up to display. There's actually a hide show dimensions, and you can turn them on and off and such. But now let's drag these in. You can pop that arrow in a little bit. Now these two dimensions, we see that they're a little bit big, and also they don't fit well for the size of the drawing. Now it's a 12-point format that we have here, but let's say we want to change it to maybe something smaller, like maybe 9. Here's what you could do. You could go to the gear up here, go to Document Properties, go to Annotations, and go to Font. And first of all, let's change this. Instead of 12 points, I'll click on points. Let's change it to 9. Yeah, we'll change it to 9. Hit OK. Notice you could change the attachments, the arrowheads, and things like that too from a library. But let's go to Detailing. Let's see. Oh, go to Dimensions. Now the annotations were just for like notes and such. But now let's change the dimension font too. Go to Font right here and change it to points. And let's change that to 9 as well. Now here's more information on the arrowheads. So if you want to make them smaller and things like that, you could adjust that size. You have the ability to have dual dimension display, so millimeters and inches, and it will put one or the other in brackets next to it. You have the precision for the primary precision. You could, let's say you want 3 decimal places, or dual precision. This is again for the dual precision, so if you want to see that as well. And I think that's about all we want to cover right now and there. Let's go ahead and hit OK. And you can see things have tightened up a little bit, so it looks a little bit nice, tidier. Now these dimensions here, let's say we want to rotate those. Again, it goes against the NC standard here, but if you select both of these, holding Control, go over to Leaders, and at the very bottom there's a checkbox, Custom Text Position. Go ahead and select the third option, and you'll see it will rotate them 90 degrees. Also, if you're making an inspection drawing or inspection dimensions, let's say this 2.5 inch, you could click on that, and over on the left here you have inspection dimension, and it'll put a little bubble around it. And we can drag that out here and run out of room. Same with this one here. Okay, now up here, let's say we wanted to, again, we don't have a great example here for ordinate dimensions, but I'd like to show it to you. If you go to the little arrow underneath Smart Dimensions, you could find, let's go with vertical ordinate dimensions. Now the first thing you have to do is locate the 0. So if you select this, you could drag the 0 off, or maybe over here, click, and now every edge that you select, it'll get the center, and then it's going to make it driven in this case. That's fine. And put that there. You could hit Don't Show again if you don't want to see that. Now, when it says it's a driven dimension, that means its value can't be changed, and we can see that by the color. Now, if you don't want that to print out grayscale like that as a reference dimension, when you go to the File, Print, you can actually specify just black and white versus grayscale for the print, and thus those will all come out the same color. Now down here you do have a color display mode too, if you want to turn colors off and things like that. Okay, now these little arrows for, let's hit Escape. You can move this and actually squeeze this down a little bit. All right, so now we've seen how to add dimensions. Let's add some annotations. Like, for example, let's add a note. Go ahead and click on Note. And you'll see there's options in here for that note. We were here before and we actually selected center line. But let's go ahead and drop that right inside here. And I'm just going to type out, and I know we have exercise 6 below, but let's just go ahead and type it out in here just to show this again. Or we could type bell housing, I suppose, underneath title and hit Escape. We know how to edit that actually somewhat, because remember, as I right-clicked anywhere, you could go to Edit Sheet Format. You could click on this. Now this is an intelligent note. This actually draws that information from the part that you inserted. So you could customize this bill of materials. It's more advanced. There's videos on it. I'm not going to go into that right now though. But if you wanted to, you could delete that note. Now I could right-click and Edit Sheet to get back out, or I could have clicked on that little icon that was right here a moment ago. Now, surface finish symbols. Go ahead and select that. And notice you could drop it on an edge, you could drop it on surface. It does go normal to that edge, so if you wanted. And over on the left, you have the symbol layout. You could put in like JAS machining required for the next one, or whatever you're looking for, and all the notes that might be required to go in there as well. The whole call out. Now for this one, let's zoom up to this area right here. Let's get this out of the way. So we're going to need some room. And go to whole call out. Now, depending upon what you want, when it's a counter board like this, you might want to select the very outer edge, and it grabs everything inside and goes from the outside in, and it even gives you the number of entities that are in there. So let's drag it over. And so that's a very nice feature. You could get full notes on all the hole types. There's also the datum feature. You could put datums in on edges, things like that. GD&T, or geometric dimension intolerancing, you could select this. Now this isn't 100% intelligent, so just be aware, I'm just dropping this information in. So for like you have a symbol library here, let's go with concentricity. You can put in tolerances, you can put in notes, and any sort of additional information that you might want. And again, I'm just typing in garbage here just to show you how it works. And from here, I could go ahead and just drop it floating out there. I could drop it near a dimension, or if I drop it on a dimension. Here, let's move it to, let's see, let's drop it on this dimension here. Oh, it's not doing what I was expecting. Used to drop and attach to a dimension. I'm not seeing that do that. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Let's hit escape. And you can see that that dimension, the GD&T is now tied to that dimension. You could control drag off a copy of it. You could delete it. You could attach a leader to it. And do whatever you want. And there's other options in there as well. So that pretty much concludes the basics of detailing for exercise 6. Now you might want to pause. I'm going to go ahead and make the drawing, and we have to make the model actually for lab 6, and that's in the book. And so if I bring that up here, that is on page 74, and if you want to rotate it, you just download it. And then once it's up, you just click on it, and now you have the ability to rotate it. And let's get to that page there. Okay, so with this drawing, as you can see, and I'm probably going to botch some of the dimensions because my intention is not to show you exactly how to do this. I really would like you to do it exactly to the print if you can, or as best as you can. Watch the video in the event that you get stuck. Also, those of you who do it, you could go back and watch the video and see better ways on how it could be done, perhaps. All right, so this is an enclosure. It's shelled out, 50 thousandths wall thickness. The backside's shelled out. The front is just has this little detail on the side, and we see it's 2.5, 6 inches high, and it has a zigzag in it. So let's begin. Start with the part file first. So you're going to build the part. Go to the front plane, start a sketch, and start off. We can start with the 2.5 inches, right about there. It's going to go up like so. It's going to jog a little bit. It's going to go back up another 2.5 inches across, jog down. We'll get that angle. We could follow parallelism. See, I got the little symbol to the right of my pointer. It locked into parallelism. Click and connect. And now, if you didn't get parallelism, this is what you could do. You could control select these two entities and select parallel if you didn't get it. Now you see I have my symbols up. I'm leaving those up right now just so you can see them. You know, I'm going to turn them off. I'm going to go to View and Hide Show, and sketch relations. Now I'm going to add the dimensions. I'm going to make this 2.5, 2.5, and it's 6 inches for the height. And then the angle we have to specify, which is 45 degrees. So from here to here, put in 45. Now you'll notice that on the drawing that I supply in here, there's some gray dimensions. Typically when you see a gray dimension, it may or may not need to be added depending upon how you model it. That usually means that I didn't actually use that in modeling. But it is 4 inches thick. Let's see here. We have a theoretical sharp corner there of 2.75 from the top. So from here to there, 2.75, and it's not a theoretical sharp corner yet, not until I fillet it. So, and then let's take a look at that drawing again. The next one is 1.75, so right here. All right, and all we're missing is the specification on this one, which, let's see. So that height, and it should mirror the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and from here to here, oh, sorry, wrong side, and down bottom to that point. Oh, that doesn't look right. Hold on a second, let's take a look here. Okay, I missed the dimension here from here to here. That is going to be 3 inches. And you can drag that out. Okay, so we have the base done. Let's go to extrude, and this is 4 inches thick. Now what you might want to do is, instead of blind, have it go mid-plane and type in 4 inches so it goes half on each side, 2 and 2. Hit the green check. Now let's take a look at the next largest feature are these radiuses. There's a 0.5 here, and TYP means that it's typical. So anywhere where we see a radius and it's not called out, be 0.5. So let's put those in. So go to the fillet tool, 0.5, and select this edge here. And let's turn on full preview so we can see it. That one, this one right here, and then this one here. Now be careful not to get faces. You don't want the whole face like that. Okay, so I want that just like this. What you want. Now there's a chamfer, and the chamfer that we see here is 45 degrees by 0.2, and it wraps around. So go to the little arrow underneath fillet, find chamfer, and 0.2, and it's already set to 45 degrees. So select this edge and make sure full preview's on, and now we have that done. Now we need to shell it, so rotate the backside, go to shell, and set it to 0.05, and select these 4 faces on the backside, and it should shell it out like that. Now we need to put the details in on the side here. Select this face, start a sketch. I'm going to hit my space bar and go to the front view orientation. And we could use the parallelogram tool. So click on parallelogram, click up here, down and across. Okay, and we're going to make this, let's see, that, hold on a second, let me delete that. I want to show you the right way to do this. Back to parallelogram, click here, draw it at an angle, like so, and then straighten it out. There we are. Now click on this, and there's a quick launch, make horizontal for the bottom line. And now we should be able to add the dimensions according to the print. So up here we can see the actual print. It's offset, by the way, a 1/4 inch from the left. So let's put that offset in first. So from this point to this edge should be 0.25. That locates it. And let's see where the value is, how far offset it is. So it's 1 inch from the top. So from this edge to here, 1 inch. And now we could start zeroing in on the other parameters on this detail view that we see. Okay, we're 45 degrees, a 1/4 inch in height, and the theoretical sharp corners, TSC, that's what that means. From this corner to this corner is 1.5. So from here to here, get that straight up. This would be 1.5. From here to here, that will be, we'll drag that in the upper right there, 45. And let's lay these out a little bit better so they're easier to see. All right, and the height from here to here should be 0.25. Now you could add the sketch fillets. The sketch fillets on this, we see are 0.06. It should have a TYP on there. So let's go to sketch fillet, 0.06, 1, 2, 3, 4 corners. Hit apply. Now we're going to do a linear sketch pattern for this. So you could click and select that. Oops, cancel the sketch fillet. Then you could click and drag that around to select that. And we're going to go to linear sketch pattern. And we see it's on the x-axis, but we only want 1 on the x-axis. We want, I believe, 6 on the y. Yep, 6. And they're spaced 0.4 apart. We're seeing that. So right here, type in 0.4. And we have to reverse it. So right here is the reverse direction. And there we go. Also dimension the Y spacing. And that should be it. Hit the green check. Now we could just cut those through. So go to Features, Extrude Cut, Through All. The part is done. Let's go ahead and save that. And save it as E6. Or I'm sorry, L6 for Lab 6. L6. And now we could go to File, Make Drawing from Part. We're going to put it on A, ANSI Landscape. Hit OK. We're going to grab the front. We'll drag off a right, a top, and an isometric. Okay, we'll make a section view right here. So select this view, go to Drawings, go to Section View, get it right in the middle. There's the midpoint. Click, hit the green check, drag it to the right, like so. Let's get the detail view, get it right on the middle point there, drag this out, drop it right there, and it's a little too small, so let's drag this out even further. And let's try and mimic what I have there. This is actually a leader, A. So, and actually it doesn't need to be A because I did the section view first, so don't worry about the lettering on there. Instead, select with leader. There we go. Okay, now we could start inserting the actual dimensions. Now don't worry about the scale that it doesn't match up with the other drawing. That drawing was done in an older template that had more space. Even though it's the same size, the actual border wasn't quite as tight. But let's go now to Annotations, go to Model Items, and we'll do Selected Feature right here. Got that. And then let's see if we could select there. There we go, we got that. And I think we're in good shape. Hit the green check. Now you just have to lay these out maybe a little bit nicer than they are. They're really in a mess here. Now this 1 inch dimension really belongs over here. So remember the shift, grab and drag it into this view. And make enough space so that everything fits. And if you need to, change it all. Go to the gear, go to the document properties and dimensions, font. And let's set it to 0.062 for the actual font size, which is half the original. So that looks a lot better. Straighten these out, and like that, remember I said that should have TYP on it. So over here, we can put TYP period. So we know that, or you could put 4 places. I said, oh no, we want 4 places. I'll put TYP. And then any other areas here, like this is the pattern, you could put the note in there. You wouldn't necessarily do that on a real drawing here. I have that here just for my students pretty much. Okay, and don't forget your name or put down Lab 6. Again, this is a great little portfolio piece. You could actually put the dimensions in better if you like. And remember this little trick here. You could control select these, right click, tangent edge with font, and then click on this one here and shade it with edges. And you can finish off anything else that I might have missed. And that concludes exercise and Lab 6.